The lead investigator on this case said something that I have not been able to stop thinking about. He said,
I don't know how to explain it in words. It was just something bad. He just had a bad aura about him.
Evil?
To say the least, yes.
now this is a trained law enforcement professional, a man who has seen things most of us never will. And the moment he stepped onto that property and looked that man in the eyes, he knew. But knowing and proving are two very different things. Alexis Murphy was 17 years old. She was a volleyball captain. She had 11,000 Twitter followers before that was even impressive. She was about to take her senior pictures. And on one ordinary Saturday in August 2013, she left home and never came back. The man responsible sat in that camper and lied to investigators' faces. He lied, and lied, and lied again. And what investigators found inside that camper changed everything. This is Unseen Stories. Let's get into it. Before we go any further, I want to take a moment to acknowledge Alexis Murphy and her family. This story is real. The pain in this story is real. And the way we tell it today is going to honor that. We are not here for shock. We are not here to sensationalize. We are here because Alexis deserves to have her story told with the respect and the truth that she earned just by being who she was. So if you are new here, welcome to Unseen Stories. This is the kind of community that takes these cases seriously. And if you have been rocking with us, you already know what we are about. Now let us get into this. Let me tell you about Alexis first. Because too often in these cases, we spend so much time talking about the person who did the harm that we forget to talk about the person who actually mattered. And Alexis Murphy, she mattered deeply. Alexis Tiara Murphy was born on June 5, 1996 in Charlottesville, Virginia. She grew up in the small quiet town of Shipman, Virginia, living with her mother Laura, her father Troy, and her grandmother Gail Taylor. And from everything that everyone who knew her has ever said, this girl was something special. She was funny. She was confident. She was independent in that way that makes people gravitate toward you naturally. She was the kind of teenager who already knew who she was and where she was going. And in a small town like Shipman, that kind of energy stands out. At Nelson County High School, Alexis was the captain of the volleyball team. Not just a player. The captain. Her teammates said she pushed them to be better while always keeping things fun. That right there tells you everything you need to know about her character. She could lead without making it feel like pressure. She could challenge people and still keep the joy in the room. She dreamed of playing volleyball in college. She was thinking about majoring in communications or fashion. She had plans. Real, specific, thought-out plans for her future. And she had the drive to make every single one of them happen. But here is what really gets me about Alexis. It was not just her talent or her ambition. It was the way she treated people. She was the kind of girl who talked to the kids that nobody else talked to. She listened when you needed to vent. She told you the truth even when it was not what you wanted to hear. She defended her brothers and teased them in the same breath. She made her parents proud without even trying to. Her grandmother Gail later described her as a scared kind of person when it came to being alone at night. Alexis always called multiple times when she was on her way home, especially when it was dark. She did not like walking from the car to the house by herself. And so Gail always made sure to leave the porch light on for her. Hold on to that detail. Because that porch light is going to matter later in this story. Now outside of the house and outside of school, Alexis had built something remarkable for a 17-year-old girl in 2013. She had 11,000 followers on Twitter. Alone. This was before influencer culture was even a real conversation. Before TikTok. Before any of that. Alexis was already documenting her life, sharing her personality, connecting with people online, and building a community around who she genuinely was. Her mother Laura later said that if Alexis were here today, she would have been TikTok famous. And honestly, there is no question about that. But here is the thing about Alexis that some people pointed to later when they tried to make sense of what happened to her. She was friendly. Genuinely, warmly, openly friendly. She would strike up a conversation with just about anybody. And in most situations, in most places, in most interactions, that is a beautiful quality, but we live in a world where not everyone who receives your kindness deserves it. And that is not Alexis's fault. Let me be very clear about that. That is never the fault of the person who is kind. What happened to Alexis Murphy is the fault of one man and one man alone. And we will get to him. But first, let us talk about that Saturday. It was August 3, 2013. A hot, still Virginia summer day. The kind of day where everything feels slow and ordinary and completely unremarkable. And inside the home she shared with her mother and her grandmother, Alexis Murphy was getting ready to head out. She had a plan for the day. She wanted to go to Lynchburg, about 34 miles south of Shipman, to pick up some hair extensions. See, Alexis was getting ready for her senior pictures. Senior year was right around the corner and she wanted to look exactly the way she envisioned. Any of us who have been 17 years old know exactly what that felt like. Senior pictures are a big deal. You want everything to be perfect. Her grandmother Gail later said that Alexis was excited that day, talking about how she could not wait to get her hair done. Before she left, Gail reminded her to take a house key just in case she got home late. But Alexis laughed it off. She told her grandma not to worry, said she would be back before she went to bed. At around 5:04 in the afternoon, Alexis posted on Twitter. One word: birdbound. Heading to Lynchburg. That was her way of keeping her followers updated the way she always did. It was just another post on an ordinary Saturday. Nothing about it suggested anything other than a teenage girl going about her day. She climbed into her dad Troy's white 2003 Nissan Maxima. She said goodbye to her family. She promised to be back later. And she drove off down the road. Now stop right there for a second, because I want you to hold the weight of that moment. A mother watching her daughter pull out of the driveway. A grandmother left behind with a quiet house. A girl driving away with nothing on her mind except getting her hair done and enjoying what was left of her summer. Nothing in that moment felt wrong. Nothing felt dangerous. It was just a Saturday afternoon. And that is what makes this so hard to sit with. Hours passed. The house grew quiet the way houses do in the evening. Gail went to bed at some point, but she left that porch light on. The same light she always left on for Alexis. The one Alexis would see pulling into the driveway that let her know she was home safe. At 1:20 in the morning, Gail woke up. The light was still on. The driveway was empty. And in that instant Gail knew. She did not need anyone to tell her. She did not need to think it through. Something in the way a grandmother knows her granddaughter told her immediately that something was wrong. She called Laura. Laura was working a graveyard shift that night. She had not heard from Alexis either. So Laura called Troy. Troy had not been in contact with Alexis since earlier in the day. Nobody had heard from her. Nobody knew where she was. And that was when a missing person report was filed for 17-year-old Alexis Murphy. Now I want to address something here because it always comes up in cases like this. There are people who might say, well, maybe she just ran away. Maybe she wanted to get away for a while. And I understand why people reach for that explanation because it is easier than the alternative. But the investigators on this case addressed that directly. The lead investigator, Bill May, said it clearly. Her profile wasn't of a runaway. She was popular in school, played volleyball, and was a very happy teenager. She had a great support group with her family. This was not a girl running from anything. She was running toward things. Senior year, college, volleyball. A future she had already mapped out in her mind. There was nothing to run from. And on top of that, Alexis's grandmother said it herself. Completely out of character for her. If she was going to miss her curfew or be late for her curfew, she would have called and said, I'm going to be late. That was who Alexis was. She called. She checked in. She let her family know. The fact that her phone had gone completely silent was not normal. It was not Alexis. And her family knew it from the very first hour. By Monday morning, August 5th, the search had grown significantly. Local news started covering the story. Volunteers joined law enforcement to search the area. Alexis's family spread the word on social media as fast as they could, and because Alexis had built that online community, the word traveled fast. People who had never met her were sharing her face and her name across the internet, hoping that someone somewhere had seen something. But as each hour passed without a single sign of Alexis, the fear that had started as a knot in Laura's stomach began to spread to everyone around her. And then on Tuesday, August 6th, investigators made their first major discovery. Alexis's white 2003 Nissan Maxima was found. It was parked in the parking lot of a movie theater in Albemarle County, about 30 miles from her home in Shipman, just sitting there, like it had been placed there deliberately. Now the discovery of the car did two things at the same time. It gave investigators something concrete to work with, but it also deepened the mystery. Because if the car is here, where is Alexis? How did it get here? And who left it here? Canine units were brought in immediately. The dogs caught a scent and began leading investigators through the parking lot, across the pavement, toward a nearby apartment complex. Search teams followed. The dogs circled the building, sniffed doorways and walkways. Investigators spent hours combing the property, checking every corner near the lot. No sign of Alexis. Employees at the theater said they did not remember seeing her that weekend. And the theater did not have cameras facing the parking lot. So investigators began canvassing neighboring businesses, hoping someone nearby had a camera pointing in the right direction. And eventually, they found something. Surveillance footage from businesses near the theater showed someone near Alexis's car. A figure. But the image was grainy. The person was not identifiable. What they could tell from the footage was this. The person walking away from that car was not Alexis. So now investigators had a very serious question on their hands. Who drove that car to that parking lot? And where was Alexis? Let me take you back to the gas station now, because this is where the real investigation began to take shape. Before the car was even found, police had received Alexis's phone records. Her last known phone activity was at 7:17 in the evening on August 3rd. The signal placed her near the Liberty gas station in Lovingston, Virginia, a small town about 15 minutes north of Shipman along Route 29. A familiar stop for people heading toward Lynchburg. Quiet. Ordinary. The kind of place you stop at and forget about 5 minutes later. Investigators went straight there and pulled the surveillance footage. And there she was, Alexis Murphy, walking into that gas station at around 7 in the evening. Calm, composed, nothing out of place. She was alone, not on her phone, and did not appear to be distressed in any way. Investigators later confirmed it themselves. She didn't appear to be distraught or scared. She paid for her gas. She went inside the store briefly, and then she walked back out, and a man held the door open for her. Now here is what the gas station clerk told investigators when they came to ask questions. And I want you to hear exactly how she described Alexis in that moment. Just said hi and she asked for her gas and I gave her change back and she said bye and I said have a nice day. She seemed fine, smiling, happy like always. Nothing out of the ordinary. Smiling. Happy. Nothing out of the ordinary. That is the last description we have of Alexis Murphy from someone who interacted with her that day. And I want that to sit with you. Because in a matter of hours after that interaction, this girl who was smiling and happy and completely unbothered was gone. Now that same clerk also remembered the man who held the door. And she remembered him in a way that made it clear he was not someone who blended in easily. He had a large Daffy Duck tattoo on his neck. And he drove a camouflage Suburban. Not a regular truck. A camouflage Suburban. The kind of vehicle that is impossible to miss and even harder to forget. The clerk also shared something that the investigators found very significant. This man did not buy any gas that day. He was just parked at the pump next to Alexis's car, watching. And both that cashier and another store employee later testified to something that tells you everything you need to know about this man's pattern of behavior. They said that he would regularly back into a parking space at that gas station and watch teenagers hanging out in the parking lot. They said it was creepy. Not suspicious in a way they could report. Not doing anything technically wrong. Just watching. Waiting. And nobody knew what he was waiting for. Until Alexis Murphy pulled into that gas station on August 3, 2013. After going through the footage carefully, frame by frame, investigators discovered something they had not caught the first time. Another camera, pointed in a different direction. A different angle entirely, and what that camera showed changed the entire direction of the investigation. It showed Alexis Murphy and her dad's white Nissan pulling out of the gas station parking lot. And right behind her, the camouflage Suburban. Both vehicles turning onto Route 29 heading north. Together. That was the last time Alexis's car was seen moving. Now investigators had something to work with. They ran the information on the camouflage Suburban and identified the man behind the wheel. His name was Randy Taylor, 48 years old. A local man who lived just off Route 29 in a small rundown area surrounded by trees. And his home was not a house. It was a weathered camper parked beside an abandoned building. Investigator Bill May drove out to that property himself. And this is where we come back to those words I opened this story with. Because what May described when he pulled up to that camper is something that stayed with everyone involved in this case. I don't know how to explain it in words. It was just bad. It had a bad aura about him. Evil to say the least. Randy Taylor came outside when investigators pulled up. He was calm, almost casual, and he denied knowing anything about Alexis Murphy. He said he had never seen her. But then investigators showed him the footage. The clip of him holding the door for Alexis at the gas station. The two vehicles pulling out together onto Route 29. And still, he lied. Bill May later said it directly. The fact that he denied having any knowledge of Alexis Murphy, not by name, but even the photograph we showed him, that he hadn't seen her when he clearly held a door for her, we knew that he was lying. They knew. But they needed proof. So they asked Randy if they could look around inside the camper. And Randy said yes. He let them in. And that was when they saw it. The camper was cramped, cluttered. The kind of space that tells you a lot about a person just by standing in it. Investigators began looking around carefully. And on the carpet floor something caught their eye. A torn acrylic fingernail, embedded deep in the fibers. And nearby, a small diamond stud earring, and strands of dark hair. Investigator Bill May later described exactly what went through his mind in that moment.
You know, just based on my experience, an earring can fall out of your ear. That's not uncommon. But the fingernail that was torn, that was concerning to me. To me, it just indicates that something violent took place.
Torn fingernail does not fall out by accident. A torn fingernail tells a story. And the story it was telling in that moment was one that everyone in that camper did not want to believe. All of the items were collected as evidence and sent immediately for DNA testing. In the meantime, investigators left the property. They did not yet have enough for an arrest. But Randy Taylor was not going anywhere. Not from their radar. Not from their focus. And not from the truth that was slowly closing in around him. Just 36 hours later, the DNA results came back. The fingernail, the earring, and the strands of hair. All of them matched Alexis Murphy. All of them. Alexis Murphy had been inside that camper. And based on what that torn fingernail suggested, she had not been there willingly. On Monday, August 12th, investigators returned to Randy Taylor's camper. This time with the DNA results in hand. They confronted him with the evidence. And that was when his story changed for the very first time. Suddenly, he remembered Alexis. Randy Taylor now claimed that he had actually met Alexis once before. About a year earlier at a car wash. He said that when she saw him at the gas station on August 3rd, she recognized him and commented on something. And according to Taylor, there was another man with Alexis that evening. Someone she knew. He said the two of them followed him back to his camper. They sat down, had some drinks, stayed for a while, and then left together. Happy. Laughing. Alive. He said Alexis left that camper on her own 2 feet. Now, let me ask you something. If Alexis left your property happy and laughing and alive, why did you tell investigators minutes earlier that you had never seen her in your life? Why did you look at her photograph and say you did not recognize her? Why did you deny it when you were staring at footage of yourself holding a door open for this girl? The story does not hold. And investigators knew it immediately. But they followed the lead anyway. Because that is what you do. You follow every thread until it either leads somewhere or it does not. Taylor gave them a name for the other man. Damian Bradley. He said Damian was with Alexis that night. So investigators tracked Damian down and questioned him. Damian Bradley said he was not with Alexis. He said he was not in Virginia at all during the weekend she went missing. And when investigators verified that claim, Damian Bradley had a solid alibi. He was in Alabama with his father. Hundreds of miles away from Lovingston, Virginia. Hundreds of miles away from that camper. Randy Taylor had just sent law enforcement on a deliberate detour. And when the detour led nowhere, every eye came straight back to him. He was arrested and charged with abduction. But Alexis was still missing. With Taylor behind bars on abduction charges, investigators went back to that camper with a full search warrant. And this time they went through every single inch of that space. Under the couch they found something wrapped in a shirt. The shirt was the same one Taylor had been wearing the day Alexis went missing. Captured clearly on the gas station surveillance footage. The same shirt. And wrapped inside that shirt were black hair extensions and a set of artificial eyelashes. Bill May described what that moment felt like. Wrapped up inside the shirt was her eyelashes, press-on eyelashes. And I'm not talking about a hair. I'm talking hair extensions that were weaved into your hair. Gobs of it wrapped up and rolled into his shirt. He had taken them. He had hidden them. He had wrapped them in his own shirt and stuffed them under his couch. Why would a man do that if Alexis had simply visited his camper and left on her own? Why would you hide someone's belongings unless you needed to hide what those belongings meant? And then investigators turned the shirt over. There was a stain on the back. The items were sent for testing immediately, and the DNA results confirmed what investigators feared. The hair extensions and everything wrapped in that shirt matched Alexis Murphy. Now outside the camper, investigators also found something else. Buried in the dirt and leaves and thick brush just beyond the property, a specialized canine unit trained to detect materials found inside cell phones picked up a scent. And there, partially hidden beneath the ground, they found Alexis's phone. Her phone. Broken. Discarded. Just yards away from the man who swore he barely knew her. This was not a coincidence. None of it was. And then investigators found something else inside that camper. Something that revealed the kind of person Randy Taylor truly was underneath everything. They found a scrapbook. And inside that scrapbook were cut-out photographs with the faces replaced by the face of a young girl. A teenager. The daughter of one of his co-workers. This man was 48 years old. I'm not going to say more than that, because I think the facts speak loudly enough on their own. And what those facts say about who Randy Taylor was and what kind of intentions he carried with him is something the jury in this case ultimately agreed on. Now let us talk about the trial, because this case presented a challenge that does not come up often in the legal system. Prosecutors were moving forward with a murder charge, but they did not have a body. They did not have remains. They had DNA. They had surveillance footage. They had physical evidence recovered from the camper. But they did not have Alexis herself. Cases without a body are rare. Convictions without a body are even rarer. And the defense knew that. Randy Taylor pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense maintained the same story he had been telling from the beginning. That Alexis left his camper alive with another man. That he had nothing to do with her disappearance. That the evidence pointed in the wrong direction. But the prosecution laid out every piece of evidence in front of that jury with precision. The surveillance footage from the gas station showing Alexis and Taylor at the same location at the same time. The footage showing her car following his camouflage truck up Route 29. Her DNA inside his camper. The torn fingernail. The earring. The hair extensions hidden in his shirt under his couch. Her phone found buried in the dirt just yards from his front door. The testimony from gas station employees who described his disturbing habit of parking there and watching teenagers. And then there was the alibi of Damian Bradley. The man Taylor had tried to use as a shield. Confirmed to be in Alabama. Confirmed to have nothing to do with any of it. The only thing that story accomplished was showing the jury exactly what kind of man Randy Taylor was. A man willing to put an innocent person's name in the middle of his own situation to save himself. After 6 days of testimony and just over 6 hours of deliberation, the jury came back. Guilty. First-degree murder. Abduction with intent to defile. On July 23, 2014, Randy Taylor was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. Laura Murphy sat through every moment of that trial, listening to the details of what happened in the final hours of her daughter's life. Hearing Alexis's name repeated over and over in a courtroom. And still, she did not know where Alexis was. She said it herself. It certainly doesn't bring the closure that we need, because the only thing that can do that is finding Alexis. 2 life sentences. Justice on paper. But no peace. Not yet. After the verdict, Taylor attempted to negotiate. He told prosecutors he would accept 20 years in prison in exchange for leading them to Alexis's location. 20 years. For what he did. For what he took from that family. He wanted to trade that information for a lighter sentence. And Laura Murphy, this woman who had spent over a year not knowing where her daughter was, who sat through an entire murder trial while Alexis was still somewhere out there waiting to come home, refused. She said it directly. We were not willing to bargain with him. I'm not bargaining with the murderer. Read that again. This woman chose not to have the location of her daughter revealed because she refused to reduce the consequences for the man who took her. She chose justice over closure. And that is one of the most painful and powerful decisions I have ever heard a mother make. I need you to understand what that took. Because most of us, if we are being honest with ourselves, do not know what we would do in that position. The weight of that choice is almost impossible to describe. But Laura Murphy made it. And she stood on it. Randy Taylor was not done causing damage though. In October 2014, just months after his sentencing, He made a public claim that investigators had the wrong man, that the real person responsible was still free, and he pointed his finger at a man named Jesse Matthews. Now at the time, Virginia was dealing with multiple missing persons cases in the same general area. Morgan Harrington, Anna Graham, Samantha Clark, all gone. All within miles of where Alexis was last seen. Jesse Matthews was already a suspect in some of those cases. He was a large man with dreadlocks, and Taylor tried to use that description to connect Matthews to the story he had already told about the man who was allegedly with Alexis that night. Investigators followed the lead. They ran tests. They did the work. And Jesse Matthews was conclusively ruled out as having any connection to Alexis's case. Jesse Matthews was not innocent in his own right. He faced serious charges connected to other cases. But he had absolutely nothing to do with what happened to Alexis Murphy. And the fact that Randy Taylor reached into the real pain of other missing women and tried to use their cases as cover for himself, that tells you everything you need to know about his character. He was convicted. He was sentenced. And he was still trying to manipulate the situation from inside a prison cell. Some people do not stop. Years passed. The headlines faded the way headlines do. Other stories took the attention of the news cycle. Life moved forward for most people. But for the Murphy family, time did not move the way it does for everyone else. Every season that changed was another season without Alexis. Every birthday, every milestone, every moment that should have had her in it. Laura never stopped believing that her daughter would be found. She held on to that. She carried it with her through all of it. And the community around her never fully let go either. Search teams kept going back to the woods around Taylor's property. Back roads, fields, rivers cutting through Nelson County. Every time with the same hope. Every time ending the same way. Until December 2020. More than 7 years after Alexis Murphy drove away from her grandmother's house on a Saturday afternoon, investigators received a call. Human remains had been discovered on private property in Livingston, Virginia, just miles from where Alexis was last seen. The area was secluded, overgrown, difficult to reach, the kind of place that does not give up its secrets easily. The remains were sent for testing immediately, and in February 2021 the results came back. It was Alexis, after 7 years, after 2 life sentences, after a trial with no body, after a mother refused to bargain with a murderer, after search after search after search through those Virginia woods, Alexis Murphy had been found. And here is something that has stayed with me about how this happened. Investigators later revealed that Taylor had reportedly led police to the location. He walked them onto that private property himself after years of silence. What made him finally talk after all of it? Nobody knows for certain. Maybe guilt caught up with him. Maybe something shifted inside that prison cell after 7 years. The lead investigator raised that question herself. Every time I think about this case, I wonder what exactly made him want to talk. It wasn't like he was ever going to see the light of day. Maybe guilt. Or did he want the recognition from his peers on the inside that he was just as evil as they were? That question may never have a clean answer. But the result mattered more than the reason. Alexis was home. On June 6, 2021, a celebration of life was held for Alexis Murphy. It was held in her high school football stadium. The same school where she had captained the volleyball team. Where she had walked those halls with her personality filling every room she entered. People came from everywhere to fill that space and pay their respects to her. She would have been 25 years old that day. June 6th was her birthday. Her family built a memorial garden that holds her ashes. And in that garden, in that quiet and sacred space, Alexis has a place that belongs to her, that no one can take away. Her family released a statement after her remains were identified. And I want you to hear these words exactly as they were written. Alexis was the fashionista, athlete, and joker of our family. We were blessed to have loved her for 17 years, and her memory will continue to live on through us all. The fashionista, the athlete, the joker of the family. That is who Alexis Murphy was. Not a victim, not a case number, not a headline. She was the joker of her family, the one who made people laugh, the one who showed up for her people, the one who left the light on in every room she walked into. And her aunt said something that I think is one of the most remarkable things to come out of this entire story. She said that she had found closure and forgiveness since everything happened. That visiting the place where Alexis's remains were found actually helped her reach that peace. forgiveness. After all of that, after everything that was taken, after 7 years of not knowing, after a trial and a sentencing and a mother who had to choose justice over closure, this family found a way to forgive. Could you? I mean that as a genuine question, not a challenge. Could you find your way to forgiveness after something like this? I think about that question more than I can explain. Now I want to leave you with 2 things before we close this out today. The first is this. Alexis Murphy was not taken because she was in the wrong place doing the wrong thing. She was at a gas station, in the middle of the day, running an errand that millions of people run every single week. She was doing everything right. And a man who had already decided what he wanted chose her in that ordinary moment. There is a lesson in that. Not a lesson about where women should or should not go. Not a lesson about who you should or should not speak to. The lesson is about how important it is for us as a community to take missing persons cases seriously from day one, especially when those missing persons are young black women and girls. Because the truth of this case is that Alexis's disappearance got attention. Her family fought hard for that attention. The community rallied. Investigators moved quickly. And even then it took 7 years to bring her home. There are families out there right now who are not getting that attention, who are fighting for their missing loved ones in silence. And they deserve the same energy that we give to every other case that makes the headlines. The second thing I want to leave you with is simpler than that. It is something Alexis's mother said. Something that stays with me. She said she finds comfort in knowing Alexis is free. That her spirit is in the rain, in the sun, and in the wind that moves gently through the trees. That she is everywhere her family looks. I think that is one of the most beautiful things a mother has ever said about a child she lost. And it tells you everything about the kind of love that existed in that family. The kind of love that Alexis grew up surrounded by. The kind of love that never stopped looking for her. Alexis Murphy was here. She mattered. She was the fashionista and the athlete and the joker and the captain and the girl with 11,000 Twitter followers who genuinely loved the people who followed her back. She was all of those things before she was any of the things that happened to her. And she deserves to be remembered that way. That is Unseen Stories for today. If this moved you, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. If you are new here, stick around. We cover these stories because they matter and because the people inside them matter. Rest easy, Alexis. We see you.